Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Chinky Pirino Golye. I'm joining you from the Philippines. I work with the Eco Waste Coalition as regional coordinator of IPEN for Southeast and East Asia. I'm so glad to see you all today. This webinar is important because PFAS, also known as forever chemicals, continue to be produced, used, and disposed of on a wide scale, while awareness, regulation, and safer alternatives are still lagging behind. Communities, consumers, and all of us continue to face real risks from these toxic and persistent chemicals. Addressing them requires stronger policies, better monitoring, and active public engagement. That's why we're also here today. At the global level, there has been progress. Like earlier this year at the BRS COPs 2025, the Stockholm Convention officially added perfluorocarboxylic acids to its control list. So this is a landmark step in international policy on PFAS. Yet, when moving from global commitments to national and regional context, questions remain. Are governance systems strong enough to deal with PFAS persistence and bioaccumulation? What gaps in regulation, monitoring, and risk assessment need urgent action or attention? Industry also has critical role to play while companies are exploring safer substitutes, improving production processes, and managing waste more responsibly. Significant bottlenecks remain. So this raises tough but necessary questions about corporate accountability. So for IPEN and all of us, the Stockholm Convention listing is an important milestone, but the real test lies in how governments, businesses, and civil society turn global decisions into national action. So these are the key issues that this webinar will explore, intend to or intending to sharpen our strategies, learning from one another, and also strengthen our collective action. So on behalf of the co-organizers, IPEN Southeast and East Asia Hub, the Toxins Free Corps, the C Foundation, Shaoxing, Shaolu, Shanghai, uh, Shanghai Qingye, Nature Fields, Green Color ENGO. Thank you for joining us and for your commitment to a PFAS-free future. So I'm going to share with you the program for this webinar. So we will all be together in the next 2 hours, and we will have two sessions. No, in the first session we will have speakers on like the IPEN global work on PFAS, on research data methodology and NGO involvement. Also, the IPEN work on PFAS, no, in terms of policy work and what more can be done, no, in the future. And then we'll also have a speaker on PFAS litigation and legislation in the US, the EU, and China. And after that, we will have a short Q&A. We also invited some colleagues to provide their initial reflections and reactions, and also, no, in relation to their existing work also in their country. And then after that, we'll have another set of speakers to discuss the first on the PFAS disclosure performance of Chinese listed companies, no, in 2024. Also, we've invited friends, no, from Korea, South Korea, and Japan to share also their initiatives in their country. And also, we'll have the Q&A. So that is our program for today. We have excellent set of speakers, and I hope that you will be with us until the end of this webinar. Okay, just small a quick notes, no. This webinar is being recorded and we will share with you the link to the webinar soon. You can also type your questions in the Zoom Q&A box at any time, and then our speakers will address during the Q&A or also no online. And then yeah, and also thank you for introducing yourselves, your name, your organization, and country in the chat box. All right. So now I'm going to call on a representative from one of the co-organizers of this webinar, Wang Mengsiu from the C Foundation, to also give her welcome remarks. Mengsiu, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chinky. Dear experts, guests, and colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Wang Mengsiyu from the SEE Foundation, and I'm honored to welcome you all as a representative of the supporting organization for this webinar. And I will also like to extend my sincere thanks to IPEN, Shenzhen Zero Waste, and all the organizations that gave efforts to this webinar. Firstly, let me give a short introduction of SE Foundation. Our foundation was established by some Chinese entrepreneurs who are enthusiastic about public welfare and environmental protection in 2008. We have been dedicated to creating a collective platform that connects private sectors, environmental NGOs, and the public. And we have supported more than 1,200 NGOs and individuals to carry out environmental protection work. In 2024, we have launched the Initiative for Chemical Management and Safe Consumption, focusing on emerging pollutants like PFAS, known as forever chemicals. And we also conduct chemical testing in daily use products and research green labeling standards and develop tools for green supply chain management. And our goal is to enhance industry compliance, boost consumer awareness, and empower consumers to make informed choices for safe consumption. A few months ago, we participated in the BRS COPs in Switzerland and realized that the environmental and health risks of PFAS are increasingly prominent, and the elimination of PFAS requires the participation of more relevant parties. We need to draw on more international experience, including policies, the practices of civil organization, and the advanced experience of other countries to solve this problem. Therefore, we support this webinar, hoping that through this dialogue, we can analyze the environmental and health risks of PFAS, explore the roles and the responsibilities of government, enterprises, NGOs, and the public in PFAS governance, and jointly seek effective pathways to achieve a PFAS-free future. Over the next 2 hours, you will hear the sharing of experts and scholars who will discuss key PFAS governance issues from different perspectives, including policies, legislation, NGO action, corporate information disclosure, and the national governance experiences. We look forward to finding new directions and solutions for building a PFAS-free future through this exchange of ideas. Once again, thank you all for joining us. We hope this webinar inspires you with valuable insights. Let's join hands and work together towards a healthier and more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mangsuyu. I'm so happy to co-organize this webinar with our friends, no, friends from China who are very active on advancing toxic free future. So thank you so much. So we will now go to our main speakers. So first, I'm gonna call on Chitka Strakova. So Chitka is a global researcher with Arnica and also IPEN. She has over 15 years of experience leading international studies on toxic chemicals, including PFAS, and has co-authored numerous reports that have informed global policy discussion under the Stockholm Convention and beyond. No? So today, she will present an overview of IPEN work on PFAS, global work on PFAS, and particularly on research, data, methodology, and of course, the NGOs or the PO or IPEN PO's involvement. So we're going to give you Chitka Strakova.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Jitka Strakova, and I am global researcher at International Pollutants Elimination Network. Today, unfortunately, I am not with you at the webinar. I am currently at maternity leave, which makes me pre-record this session and being available for your follow-up questions on email. And there is also Sarah Brochet, who will follow with her speech after me. So I'm also sure that Sarah will be happy to answer some of your questions. Yeah, and the intention of my today's speech is to give you overview of IPEN research into the forever chemicals or PFAS. This is quite large group of chemicals, depending on who is counting 4, 10, or even more thousand of individual chemicals. There are quite diverse group of compounds, but they share one property, and it is their high persistence. And this makes them highly concerning for the environment. They were widely used and are widely used in different consumer product and industrial application for their specific properties. One is stability or resistance of heat, and the presence of hydrophobic and hydrophilic component in PFAS molecule. This makes PFAS happy to settle a layer between, for example, liquid and solid material. And for this property, PFAS are being used as a surfactants. They easily repel water and dirt from the surface of textile, clothing, packaging. They are used in firefighting foams, cosmetics, and much more. So they are found in many different things and applications, and for their persistence, they are also present everywhere and in everyone. They are basically the most persistent synthetic chemicals known today, and their continuous emissions lead to increasing levels of PFAS in the environment. The more we learn about their impact, the more concerning it is. PFAS are related to many different health concerns, including thyroid disease, different cancers, negative impacts of fertility, and much, much more. But this is basically the wrapping, the overall very brief summary on what PFAS are, and we will spend most of the time of my presentation by looking into the data. And at the first place, we will look into the presence of PFAS in food packaging. Thanks to IPEN participating organizations, IPEN is able to conduct global study which collects items, tested products from different countries, and in this case, we collected almost 120 samples from 17 countries. Those included paper wrappers, cardboard boxes, and plant-based molded fiber disposable boxes and tablewares. After IPEN's participating organizations searched the market and collected their samples and shipped them for the analysis, we made the final selection of the products to balance geographical and other balance among the samples, and lab conducted two-step procedure, two-step analysis. They looked into the targeted specific PFAS and quantified concentrations of those targeted PFAS in each sample. In second step, they also looked at the content of extractable organic fluorine. And with this value, we are able to define or understand how much PFAS content of a sample comes from the targeted PFAS and how much of the content comes from unknown substances. It's very interesting and important information showing that there are many unknown PFAS chemicals which we are not able to hit with targeted PFAS analysis. We were able to divide tested products into selected groups, and with this grouping, the group of items with the highest levels, the highest concentration of PFAS were boxes and tablewares made of molded fiber, which are plant-based fibers advertised as biodegradable or compostable, which definitely adds to concerns of circulation of PFAS from decomposed round and round. And so first place with the highest levels were those compostable products advertised as a compostable or biodegradable. At the second place in our grouping with the highest levels were microwave popcorn bags, third place fast food paper wrappers, and fourth place cardboard packaging for a takeaway meal. It looks like cardboard itself is able to keep some of the grease inside the packaging, and there is no additional chemical treatment needed. The mechanical property, the mechanical barrier which the cardboard creates is usually enough for its purpose. Quite interesting result of the study is that global companies are inconsistent in their policy, and their products are wrapped into the packaging with very different levels of PFAS when we look at different countries. Why are we so concerned about the presence of PFAS in food packaging? First, surely PFAS can migrate from the packaging into the food, and a human can digest PFAS with the meal. This contribute to direct human exposures, but there are strong contradiction between high persistency of PFAS, of forever chemicals, and high turnover rates of single-use as food wrapping, which is used for a few minutes and thrown away. PFAS presence in food packaging also creates a barrier to clean and safe circular economy, because PFAS are being circulated from waste materials into new packaging products. For more information, feel free to visit IPAN web pages and have a look into our reports. With this, I will move into the chapter 1, and it's the presence of PFAS in clothes. Again, thanks to the IPAN participating organizations who managed to identify clothing which is potentially treated with PFAS in their countries, we managed to collect 72 items in 13 different countries, including soft shell jackets, but also other stain-resistant clothes. Some of the key findings are that majority of items contains PFAS. Those findings can be concluded thanks to the results, either targeted PFAS or extractable organic fluorine analysis. Some of the samples are even above the levels set or near to be set in the EU. And what we can also conclude is that PFAS treatment is based on side chain, so-called side chain fluorinated polymers, which can release also globally banned carboxylic acids from the products. We identified regulated or final stage PFAS chemicals in these samples, including mentioned carboxylics, perfluorocarboxylic acids. So I thought that the PFAS compounds may come from so-called side chain fluorinated polymers. So please just note that the side chains can easily be cut out from the polymer backbone and then degrade into the P4 globally banned perfluorocarboxylic acid. So, looking at the case findings, we can look at both sides, challenging, good, bad news of our research. There are many bad news. PFAS are omnipresent in both clothes and packaging. Their presence in those consumer items increases the probability of direct human exposure and contribute to environmental impacts of PFAS. But there are also some good news. Many products are free of PFAS, which makes clear that alternatives exist and are in use. There are methodologic challenges. In PFAS analysis, there is only very limited number of sample extract linked with specific targeted PFAS. So without labeling, there are really challenges of chemical traceability and regulation. Why are we so concerned about the presence of PFAS in the clothing? Again, those textiles are contact with skin, which brings concerns for consumers. PFAS can volatilize from the products. PFAS can migrate into laundry water or weather from the items, and the emissions basically adds to the concerns when the items reach the end of their lives. And same for the packaging and clothing. Use of PFAS is not essential in this type of product, and alternatives exist. And again, feel free to visit IPEN web pages to get more information about the research data and methodology. With this, I will, for this moment of time, leave the part on the PFAS presence in consumer products and look at the environment. And as many of PFAS are soluble in water, are present in surface, underground water, drinking water, raindrops, let me show also IPEN's research into the PFAS in surface water in Dhaka, Bangladesh capital. In our study, we collected several samples of water, upstream and downstream potential industrial sources of PFAS, mainly textile factories or large industrial complex, which include also garment, textile or leather factories. And we looked what the difference of PFAS concentrations can be identified upstream and downstream, and if we can conclude or target some of the potential PFAS emitter into the environment. And from the results, we were able to target mainly two sites in Dhaka city because there are definitely mixed sources of PFAS, many different industrial plants along the rivers and water bodies, also municipal sources of PFAS, but there are two export processing zones, duty-free economic zones in the city, which concentrate many textile factories. And we were able really to see significant differences between PFAS concentrations upstream and downstream the factories, showing that those areas, those locations, those factories are likely sources of the PFAS into the water. With this unlimited time, let me conclude with few takeaways. PFAS use in textile and food packaging definitely leads to exposure in humans, including children, because also children clothing was included into our tests. Textile and food packagings are sources of PFAS release into the water. Already regulated PFAS are prevalent in tested product. There are large amounts of unknown PFAS in the items, and there are viable and cost-effective alternatives already in place, as is verified by the results. And this is end of my presentation. As I said earlier, please feel free to ask your question using my email address or ask Sarah. Look at our reports at the web pages, and I thank you very much for your attention and for your interest, and hope see you at one of the upcoming webinars soon. Enjoy the rest of this webinar. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Yitka. And apologies for the audio. We will try to make up to you. Actually, we have the recording of Yitka's presentation, and we will try to edit the recording so we can share with you with a clear audio. But yeah, thank you. Sorry again, but thank you, Yitka, for your presentation. So we've known that PFAS are affecting the clothing, the textiles, the food packaging, the water, no, and everything it's in an environment. It has been affecting the environment, and yeah, we're worried because of a lot of impacts of PFAS already. So, from Yitka, we will now have another resource person from IPEN. So, our next speaker is Dr. Sarah Brochet. She's the science advisor of IPEN, and she also leads the IPEN's Global Lead Paint Elimination Campaign program and represents IPEN in key international policy processes in chemicals and waste. No, so if you're involving like in SciChem, now the Global Framework on Chemicals, also the Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution, also in UNEA, also Basel, Stockholm, and Rotterdam conventions. Um, you've already, I think, met Sarah. No, today Sarah will speak on the IPEN policy work, no, on PFAS, and also what more can be done. No, so Sarah, floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Chinky, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to see so many friends from the network from many time zones and many regions. And if the sound is bad, just interrupt from my side, just interrupt me, and let's see if we can fix that. But I hope this should work. And even with the shared screen. So PFAS, one of my favorite topics. As you can tell, don't ask me about mercury. But otherwise I have my hands in a lot of different policy spaces, and a lot of them are relevant for PFAS. And you might wonder why I have these photos when I'm supposed to talk about our policy work, and that's because think one of the most important questions to start with is, what is policy work? Many of you I know have been in this room and suffering through endless days of people speaking and making statements. And that is, of course, one part of policy work. But that is the end point of a lot of activities that are also policy work. And I think that's a very, very important starting point. That when you come to international policy meetings, what you have is a collection of governments and of civil society and others from different countries. And these governments, these are usually the ones that take the final decisions, they come with their positions, and they, of course, have some leeway in how much they can bend in their position, but they do have a frame they have to work within. So that means the sooner or the earlier we can start engaging with governments to influence or to encourage certain positions, the better, because that means that the work at these meetings, in these rooms, long days without windows, that means that we can come in there with a better chance of actually having good outcomes of the meeting. So I think one of the key messages that I want to have in this presentation is that local activities are crucial for global policy. So the work that Jitke presented, I hope you could read the slides at least. These are crucial activities. These and all the work that all of you are doing in your countries is also policy work that have really strong and good influence on global policy. And I know you know a lot of this, but I will repeat it anyway, and that is that all these studies and reports, Jitke showed a few, there are lots more on PFAS and on other things, they show the need for action in countries. It shows that the problem is there in this country and that the government needs to do something about it. A lot of the studies coming out from IPAN participating organizations and regional and global reports is the first data on many chemicals, because there is a lack of data from Africa, Asia, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and so on. And this data is, of course, something to be used in some countries, not all, for media and other public awareness raising activities. And when we gather these studies into bigger reports, 10 countries, 5 countries, 25 countries, this also provides strong evidence to global policy that there needs to be global action. And then, of course, national action is also really important once a decision has been taken at a global meeting. So, for example, the long chain PFCAs, type of PFAS, that was adopted at the Conference of the Parties for the Stockholm Convention a couple of months ago. Now it needs to be implemented in countries. And we carry the same messages with us. It doesn't matter if it's local, national, regional, global. It is that there is a need to restrict and ban PFAS as a class globally. Awareness is crucial, transparency is crucial, but it's not a replacement for regulating and banning PFAS. And although there is lack of data in many countries, that doesn't mean that there is no harm. It means there's a lack of data and more studies are needed, because in the end, we need to safeguard clean and healthy, sustainable environment, including a safe and healthy working environment. And how does this look like in practice? So I have used some studies by IPAN and partners. Here is from Indonesia, looking at PFAS in microwave popcorn. So first step, test products in Indonesia, make a report. It's both in Bahasa and in English to have a big audience as possible. Then this was picked up by media, and then also because of activities Nexus 3 did, this was picked up by the government and action was promised. I I actually don't know. Maybe colleagues from Nexus 3 can tell us what has happened since. This was a couple of years ago. And then, of course, taking data not only from microwave popcorn in Indonesia, but connecting that to data in other packaging from other countries, and then in the end showing the global problem, which is the report to your right. Making these results publicly available in many countries is also important. I only speak English as another language, so it's important to have this in different languages, in Arabic and so on and so forth. This is just an example for the different PFAS country situation reports. And of course, global problems need global policy, because very few things or very few environmental and health hazards are just for one country, because you have global chains of manufacturing, transport, and so on. So there needs to be global solutions. And here are some examples. This is an action at the BRS COPs a couple of years ago, the IPEN Labs firefighters, that was specifically to showcase how there is a PFAS-free firefighting foam, firefighting foam is one of the big sources of pollution and health impact. I will also say a bit about what we actually do in terms of global policy engagement. This is from April this year. Happy people, the meeting hasn't really started yet. We had the IPEN preparatory meeting, so we're all still enjoying ourselves. We work primarily in 3 legally binding agreements relating to PFAS. The most active have been the Stockholm Convention, and that's a convention where we aimed to have global elimination of persistent organic pollutants. And there are a number of PFAS listed there. Also, the Basel Convention that controls the trade of waste and hazardous waste has PFAS components. So one of the things there is the definition of hazardous waste. How much PFAS can there be in waste before the waste becomes technically or legally hazardous waste? And then also, how do you treat waste with PFAS? So developing guidelines for how can countries manage waste that contain PFAS in a safe and sound way. There is also 2 PFAS chemicals, PFOS and PFOA, that are listed under the Rotterdam Convention. So that means that if someone wants to trade these, it's still under certain circumstances allowed, but there has to be prior informed consent by the receiving country. So that is really asking the country who's expected to receive this, do you want it? And they have to say, yes, we do want this toxic chemical in our country for that to be legal. And all these are legally binding under international law. And that's important because that means that there can be consequences if these are not being upheld. And since I hope that you are at this webinar also to know more about how to get engaged in policy work, many of you are already doing it in country. Many of you have been to the Conference of the Parties. So I also wanted to highlight a few of the things that happens in between these big meetings, because there is a lot of work happening under the Stockholm Convention, for example. There are chemicals being nominated, and then there is evaluation process for 3 years in the POPs Review Committee. And there is an opportunity there to be able to submit information. There are meetings to participate in, but the most important thing is actually to provide information, national data, monitoring data, whatever it is, to this evaluation. There is an evaluation committee for the Rotterdam Convention. IPEN as such has not been that active, but our colleagues at Pesticide Action Network has been there and been very diligent because a lot of pesticides are there. And there's also a number of working groups under the Basel Convention that usually meets online, which is an opportunity for people to have an easier way of participating and engaging, but also a way to provide information from countries, from studies, from monitoring, whatever it is, to these international processes. The final thing I also want to highlight is the Global Framework on Chemicals, formerly known as CICHEM. It is not legally binding, but it is a commitment by governments and stakeholders to work towards a planet free from harm from chemicals and waste. So even though some country delegates thinks this is not important, all these countries have made a commitment to actually do things about PFAS and other things. So PFAS and transition to safe alternatives is an issue of concern under the GFC. And most of the work here is done under what's called the Global PFC group, so Global PFAS group basically, which is jointly run by the OECD and UNEP. And just because it says OECD doesn't mean that people from other countries, non-OECD countries, can't engage. But I find that UNEP has not been very good in communicating on how you can engage and what are the opportunities. And this is also not, we have not engaged that much in this OECD UNEP group as such, for various reasons, mainly capacity. But that is something, it's an important group. They have come up with a lot of scientific information, reports, which have been very helpful for our work. And that is the end of what I wanted to share today. And as Jitka mentioned in her presentation, I'd be happy to try to respond to any questions about the studies as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's like a global policy work review, like 101 also, and review, no? Thank you so much. So we've learned, no, from the presentation of Yitka how the data and information, no, are gathered, no, and analyzed, then being used to policy work, whether in national and global policy work. So it's really helpful, no, because I think many of us here are also engaging not only in national but also in global policy work. So thank you again, Sarah. Now, we will also hear, no, this is another topic which I am also excited to learn about. PFAS litigation and legislation in the US, the EU, and China. So this is a very important topic that I'm also excited. So we welcome Gu Feng. She has a PhD in law. She's an environmental public interest lawyer, legal advisor for Shaoxing Zhaolu, and she previously served as head of legal team and policy advisor at Friends of Nature. She also represented parties in multiple public interest litigations, including acting as lead counsel in China's first case under the new environmental protection law. And she conceived and managed landmark cases with national and global impact, such as the Jiangsu toxic land case and green peafowl habitat protection case. Very amazing. And she is also engaged in research, legislative participation, and advocacy work. So currently, she's also a visiting scholar at Yale Law School, Vermont Law School, and New York University School of Law. So thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Feng Ge, I will now welcome you to take the floor.
好，非常感谢主持人 Chinky 的介绍，也特别感谢这次会议组织方的邀请。那我接下来介绍的内容呢是 C Foundation 资助的一个项目的研究的成果，所以也特别感谢 C Foundation。那我今天发言的主题呢是关于美国、欧盟和中国的 PFAS 污染的案例，与立法进展。因为时间的问题哈，我会主要呢围绕美国的4个PFAS 污染的案例， 欧盟的立法进展以及中国的 PFAS 的相关的规制这3个方面来做介绍。那首先呢，第一部分呢，我分享一下我对美国4个关于 PFAS 污染饮用水的集体诉讼案例。那这4个集体诉讼的案例呢，它原告都是美国多个地区的公共供水系统。那它的被告呢是 3M 等这些 PFAS 化工产品公司。那为什么这个美国的这些公共供水系统来诉这些化工企业呢？是因为这些化工企业长期以来在知道 PFAS 有毒并且会释放到环境中的这种情况下，仍然长期的持续的研发、生产、销售、运输，包括储存这些 PFAS 产品，污染了原告的这个水源和供水系统。那这个案件呢，是在最近，也就是去年2024年是先后和解结案。和解的金额呢也是十分惊人的。首先呢，诉 3M 公司的这个案件和解金额达到了105亿到125亿美元。可以说呢，在我们环境诉讼历史上也是一个特别惊人的这样一个数字。那诉杜邦等公司的案件呢，和解的金额是11.85亿美元。那诉巴斯夫的这个案件和解的金额是3.165亿美元。另外最后一个案件呢，诉泰克消防等这些企业的案件，和解金额是7.5亿美元。这是这4个案件的一个概况哈。那我们来看一下，这4个案件的这个原告，我们知道都是美国的多个地区的公共供水系统。那他的被告呢，我在这儿列了一下，他4个案件分别涉及到的被告哈。首先就是第一个案件，他就只告了 3M 公司。那这个案件它的赔偿额最大。那是因为 3M 公司在 PFAS 产品的销售份额中在美国的市场上是占了70%以上哈，是销售份额是非常大的。那第二个案件的被告呢是杜邦、科莫和科迪华这3个公司。那第3个案件是他的被告是个泰科消防产品公司和这个凯姆防护公司哈。那第4个案件呢，他的这个被告是巴斯夫哈，可以说是把这个在美国甚至全球的这个化工巨头哈，这个告了。那这个而且基本上囊括了这些生产 PFAS 产品的这些化工企业。那接下来我想重点讲一下哈，这4个案件当然都是非常大的案件，也很复杂。我想重点分享一下呢，就是这个案件里面原告所举证的涉及到的证据哈，因为这个和我们接下来无论是我们 NGO 还是律师去做接下来的在本国开展相关的工作的时候呢，或许会有一定的借鉴意义哈。首先是我们看这个原告他举证的第一类证据呢，是证明这个被告所生产的这些 PFAS 产品呢，在它具有这个环境持久性、迁移性、生物累积性和毒性。那正是因为 PFAS 的这些特性呢，以至于 PFAS 这些产品，它在释放到环境中之后呢，对被告的这个饮用水源和供水系统造成了污染。那第二类呢，他举证的证据就是一旦这个被告的消费者，也就是公众这个喝这些水的这个群体，暴露于 PFAS 呢，它会带来多种健康问题。那被告呢， 证明被告他的这个产品与这个健康问题的证据，首先是呢，原告举证了在2012年的时候，有一个诉讼是对杜邦的这样的一个诉讼。作为这样诉讼的一个成果呢，成立了一个科学小组。那这个科学小组呢，通过大量的这个大规模的群体的流行病学的研究呢，得出一个结论。结论是接触这个全副辛酸这次研究主要针对全副辛酸 PFOA。那这种产品与6种疾病有关，其中是包括2种是癌症。那第二个证据呢，第二类证据呢，他们就是拿到的是美国卫生与公众服务部的国家毒理学项目，包括还有国际癌症研究机构的这个研究成果。这2个机构呢，都是对氟化学品的不良影响进行研究以后，得出了这样的结论。首先是美国的国家毒理学项目的结论呢，是认为 PFOA 和 PFAS 都对人类的免疫系统是有影响的。那国际癌症机构呢，研究结论这证明呢 PFOA 对人类和实验动物都具有致癌性。那原告举证的第3类证据呢，是 EPA 的。那 EPA 呢，在发布它的相关的政策和法律规定的时候呢，引用了自2016年以来的相关的科学研究发现。这些科学研究发现呢，表明 PFOA 和 PFAS 的暴露呢，与免疫系统、心血管系统、人类发育以及人类的这个遗传和这个癌症之间是存在这个关联性的。这些科学证据呢，其实是形成了强大的这样的一个证明力，来证明被告的这些产品一旦释放到环境中，污染了这个饮用水，对这个公众的健康是构成了严重的威胁。那原告举证的第3大类证据是这个原告的这个饮用水源和供水系统呢，已经被被告的这种 PFAS 污染了，或者将来有可能被受到污染的这种风险。这个是得益于其实他们从早期就开始国家有相关的法规来要求这些原告来进行这个水质的检测接下来我会讲这个美国的相关的法律。那第4类证据呢原告就是证明3M 等这些化工企业呢，其实对 PFAS 的危害它早有认知，它并不是不知道，是吧？然后提供这些产品给这个这个给原告和公众，他是知道的，而且是早就知道，但是没有告诉政府和用户。首先是你看原告举证的证明是早在20世纪70年代的时候呢，3M 公司就通过内部的研究发现 PFAS 在人体血液中是已经存在了，并且意识到它潜在的对健康的危害。在1983年呢，3M 公司还研究呢显示 PFAS 在动物实验中也导致癌症，是有致癌性的那1998年呢，3M 公司还内部计算了一个 PFAS 的安全参考水平但是呢，它并没有，尽管它这个安全参考水平其实是非常的这个就是那个标准并不是很高但是即使如此，他们也没有向 EPA 和其他监管机构披露。所以说呢，这个3M 等这些化工企业是明知故犯。明知这些产品是对公众的健康是有危害的，仍然提供这些产品给公众，而且呢，他们也在研究相关的替代产品，实际上也有相关的替代产品 可以来供这个原告来供这些其实是使用这些产品的公司来使用，但是他们也没有采取这个替代产品。这是原告举证的这些系列的这个证据哈，主要是这些科学证据哈。那刚才在我们这部分发言里面呢，也有我们的科学家呢做了这个关于 PFAS 这个相关的危害的这个讲解。那其实是这个现在已经在科学界呢研究是非常多的。那原告提起这个诉讼，他依据的是什么样的法律？然后他是那我们来看一下哈，在美国呢，其实是在2012年的时候呢，美国环保署就发布了一个关于监测的这个规则，是要求呢，像原告这样的这个案件的原告就是美国的公共供水系统。是要在2013年到2015年期间监测包括这个全氟辛酸在内的这个污染物的。这也是我刚才为什么提到，你看原告他起诉的时候，其实是有监测数据能够来证明这个 PFAS 已经污染了它的水源和它的那个供水系统哈。那在2016年的时候呢，美国环保署 EPA 它已经发布了这个全氟辛烷磺酸和全氟辛酸酯 PFOA 和这个 PFAS 的这个对饮用水和健康的咨询水平这些支持文件哈。那最新的这样的一个法规，其实是对这个案件起到了一个特别重要的一个影响啊，是2024年4月份的时候，EPA 通过了一个关于 PFAS 的国家基本饮用水法规。对 PFAS 和 PFOA 等6种 PFAS 物质呢，是要求饮用水系统要来进行对这些 PFAS 进行监测。具体的监测的任务呢，是要求这些原告要用3年的时间完成一个初步的监测，也就是到2027年，然后随后进行持续的合规监测。从2027年开始呢，是要对供水系统还必须对公众提供这些饮用水中的 PFAS 的含量。同时呢，这个法规还要求呢，如果监测显示饮用水水平超过了这个限值，那要用5年的时间呢，也就是到2029年呢，实施这个减少 PFAS 的这样的一个解决方案。那第3步呢，也就是说，从2029年之后呢，如果饮用水中这个含有这种 PFAS 呢，违反了这些标准的限值呢，那这个原告还必须采取行动降低这个 PFAS 的水平，并且还要向公众公开这些违反这些标准的这个信息。正是其实这样的一个法规的通过，促成了我刚才讲的这4个其实集体诉讼的和解哈。因为这个原告呢，他承担这有法定的这个义务去来监测，去来减少 PFAS 的这个含量并且还要向公众告知通知。那而原告呢，他自己去拿什么资金来做这些事情呢？所以说，他们就发起了这样一个集体诉讼。这个集体诉讼最核心的目标就是向被告要钱，来承担这些这个监测治理修复的这样的一个义务。这是这个案件的一个大的这样的一个法律的这个背景和一个依据哈。虽然说呢，其实是特朗普上台之后在2025年，就是今年的这个5月份呢，EPA 取消了对除PFOS 和PFOA 之外的 4种PFAS 的规制哈其实是放松了对 PFAS 的这样的一个监管的要求，但实际上呢，在这个这个民间这个诉讼，包括这个美国各地的这个各州的这个检察院对这个原告的这个诉讼这个一直在持续的进行，而且在不断的增多。所以说呢，这个关于 PFAS 的这个国家的这个规则虽然说暂时的放松了，但是这个诉讼的这个反而是加强了，而且它这些这个所以说呢，这个对于 PFAS 的规制，其实美国还是是一个处于一个特别现在处于特别这个其实特别受关注的这样的一个阶段吧。那其实是这些化工巨头在美国已经停止了生产 PFAS 的这些产品啊。那接下来呢，我想分享一下欧盟的这个关于 PFAS 规制的一个立法的进展哈，就简单的分享一下，因为刚才其实2位专家，我觉得也有涉及到了哈。那欧盟呢，关于 PFAS 的规制，最早的是2008年有一个欧盟指令专门针对这个 PFAS 在产品和材料中的使用规定了一个限值。按这个指令呢，是要求各欧盟成员国呢是要转化为国内法来适用的。那2007年呢，实施的这个瑞奇法案这个法案呢，是为化学品的管理提供了整个法律框架哈。其中呢，这个法案当然是可以直接实施于所有的欧盟成员国的，不需要转化为它这个每个国家的国内法哈。所以这个法案是非常重要的。那这个它的主管部门是欧盟的化学品管理局那这个法律要求这个企业生产 PFAS 的这些企业要提交关于 PFAS 相关的信息，包括它的这个化学性质、毒理学性质等等并且呢对 PFAS 的这个风险进行评估。那随着这个瑞奇法案的实施呢，刚才讲到的这个指令欧盟的指令内容呢，也整合到瑞奇法案的这个附件里面哈。那在2017年的时候呢，PFOA 及其盐类呢也被列入了瑞奇法案的这个限制清单里面限制了这个 PFOA 的这个及其盐类的这个在产品和材料中的使用。虽然说这个欧盟的法规加强了对这个PFAS 和 PFOA 的这些规制，但是呢，这个化工企业呢是不断的开发新的 PFAS 的这个变体来规制监管。那这些 PFAS 的变体其实对环境的危害呢也非常严重。那在这种情况下呢，就像丹麦、荷兰、德国这些国家呢，就率先实施了严格的 PFAS 的这个法令那这些国家的法令呢，为欧盟它其实整体政策呢提供了一个先行的经验所以在2023年的时候呢，就是德国、丹麦、荷兰、瑞典和挪威这5个监管国家，这5个国家呢，就向这个欧盟呢，这个欧洲化学品管理局正式提交了全面禁止 PFAS 的提案。那这些国家呢，就这个提案呢，就成了推动欧盟 PFAS 禁令的一个重要的事件那这个提案呢是要求呢，修改瑞奇法案，在全欧洲范围内呢，禁止1万多种 PFAS 物质的生产、销售和使用。这个法案是特别有利的这个一个 PFAS 的一个法案那目前这个法案进展的阶段已经完成了向社会公开征集意见的这样的一个工作。那欧洲 洲的这些环保组织呀，包括一些全球的环保组织，也都向这个提案提交了意见哈。比较积极的一个展望呢，是希望这个法案能够在2026年来通过，就是明年能够通过呀。我们也拭目以待哈。如果这个法案通过的话，不仅对欧盟，对全球的这个 PFAS 的这样的一个污染的治理都是一个强大的推动哈。但是呢，其实是这也有一个隐忧哈，特别是对我们亚洲地区，我们一些处于一个发展中的国家来说呢，就存在一轮污染从美国、欧盟这些国家转移到法治不健全的国家的这样的一个风险哈。那接下来我就简单介绍一下中国的这个关于 PFAS 规制的一个立法的进展哈。首先是中国在2020年呢是有一个新化学物质环境登记管理办法，那对新涌现的这些包括 PFAS 的这些化学物质规定了一个登记公开相关信息的这个义务。那在2022年呢，中国政府也意识到，包括 PFAS 这种新污染物治理的这个迫切性发布了一个行动方案。那在这个行动方案里面呢，是要求加强对包括 PFAS 在内的这些持久性有机污染物的治理。在这种背景下呢，在2023年呢，中国就发布了重点管控新污染物清单。这个清单里呢，是规定了对 PFAS PFOS 的全面禁止生产。那禁止使用的是有一个豁免清单，那豁免清单外的是禁止使用的那对 PFOA 呢是禁止新建，就是禁止在增加新的这个产能，同时呢禁止这样的一个豁免清单以外的生产和使用。那最新的一个立法的进展哈，就是今年中国正在制定生态环境法典。那这个生态环境法典里面呢，规定了一章是对新污染物的这个整体的这个管理制度做了一个规定。特别重要的一点，其实在中国存在对新污染物的这样的一个管理架构的是比较混乱的。那在这个生态环境法典里就明确了由生态环境部来对包括新污染物在内的这种新化学物质进行整体的监督管理的职责。那这个生态环境法典当然现在正在这个制定的过程中，我们希望呢它最后通过能够把这个对新污染物的这个监督管理的框架确定下来，为下一步的具体的对包括 PFAS 在内的新污染物的法律规制的这个制度呢这个奠定一个基础哈。这是中国的关于 PFAS 规制的一个大概的一个立法的进展。那刚才呢，其实我的时间是不是有点超了？那其实是我这个研究呢是一个比较性的研究，那研究欧盟和美国的这样的相关的诉讼案例也好，倡导案例也好，还有它的这个相关的法律规定也好呢，是为了能够支持到中国现在正在紧锣密鼓的进行的相关的立法的规制，还有其实我们 NGO 和律师这些民间的力量如何能够共同参与推动这个 PFAS 规制这样的一个过程中去哈。那最后呢，也特别感谢，所以特别感谢这个项目的支持方这个 C Foundation，也特别感谢这次会议的组织方这个我们 iPen 和无毒先锋，谢谢大家。
Thank you so much, Gafeng, for your presentation. I've learned a lot from your presentation from um, from very good example on the litigation on PFAS contamination, and also, of course, how regulations in the US, in the EU, are also being updated, no, and I'm not, and also implemented. And of course, thank you for sharing also existing regulation on persistent organic pollutants like PFAS, no, in China. So I think, yeah, we've learned a lot from your presentation, and I think that you're right. That can help us also. The EU and US cases can help also not only China but also other countries in our region or globally, no, in also developing and implementing properly, no, the regula- regulation on PFAS, or in developing regulation on PFAS, because not all countries have existing regulations already. So thank you so much again. So now we will have a quick question and answer session. We have three main speakers earlier. So from global policy research, no, data gathering, also from policy work, from litigation, and updates on how regulations on PFAS in the EU and US, and also China. No, we have excellent speakers. We will have a quick question and answer session here, but also thanks already to Sarah, because she already answered a lot of questions in a those presentations, whether existing work on PFAS, no, in their organization. So first, I'm gonna request our colleague Shu Shiran, the Communications Advocacy Manager of Nature Fields, to also share her initial reflections and also their organization's work on PFAS. Shu Shiran, please take the floor now. Thank you.
好的好的，大家好，谢谢主持人老师，我是自然田的许熙然。首先非常感谢前面几位嘉宾老师的分享，让我能够更进一步了解 IPEN 关于 PFAS 的一些系列的工作，有很多宝贵的一手的研究数据，以及在这个领域相关的政策工作和公益诉讼的案例。我们自然田呢也是 C Foundation 放心消费行动的伙伴，因为我们主要是在关注食品安全问题，所以我们主要针对饮食这个场景中的食品接触材料 PFAS 问题开展了一些行动，包括一些独立检测、面向公众的科普传播等等。我们也组织了一场公众参与的检测活动，用中国的一项进出口的标准检测了35份食品接触材料的10项 PFAS。但是检测结果呢都是未检出。我们经过专家咨询等等进一步的分析，也是发现目前中国的相关监管标准还存在一定的滞后性，它的检测范围是受限的。在具体的检测标准方面，也和国际水平存在一定的差距。中国2个目前相关的国家标准，在具体的检测方法方面，采用的还是比较适合10多年前的食品接触材料的一些生产工艺，没有跟上目前的行业发展。所以后续我们也是希望能够进一步去开展行业调研，了解无氟替代产品的一些现状和市场推广的应用。也持续的能够在一些可能的时机做一些政策倡导，希望能够推动国家相关监管和检测标准的完善。刚刚 Sarah Brosh 博士有提到，就是目前的政策工作需要去尽早参与、尽早介入。其实目前中国对于食品接触材料中 PFAS 的监管标准还处在一个比较缺失的阶段，所以我也想请教Sarah 博士，就对于这样一个政策还处在早期的一个议题，像我们 NGO 想要去开展一些政策倡导，可以首先主要从哪些方面去做一些努力？谢谢。
Thank you, Shusharan. Now I will also request our colleague from Green Collar ENGO, Shen Danyang, the Executive Director, to also please share quickly his reflections, and also if you have questions to the speakers, I mean. Thank you.
那个西兰一样，都是来自于同一个资助方的那个伙伴，SE。然后我们机构关注的呢是卫生巾里面的 PFAS 的含量。我们之前选了10个品牌卫生巾和5个散装卫生巾送去检测，参考的呢是欧盟的标准和方法，但我们的检测结果呢也是未检出。然后我们除了做检测之外呢，也做了一些科普的视频，这个视频目前正在这个制作当中，然后也尝试说，去梳理，这10个品牌卫生巾，还有在电商平台上销售的这些卫生巾的化学品的这个披露的情况，然后写了给这个品牌和电商平台都递交了建议信，希望他们能推动这些化学品的信息做一个更大程度的公开。这是我们做的这个工作。然后我的问题是，就是我们在这个检测过程当中也了解到说，也就去看说为什么我们是未检出，然后以及关于检测标准和检测这个方法的一些咨询。然后我的问题是说，我们了解到说，在检测 PFAS 之前，你可以先做一个总幅的检测。如果总幅检测出来的这个含量很高的话，那含有 PFAS 的可能性也就更高。但是我们会有一个小小的顾虑是说，如果是有没有可能总幅的这个检测含量很高，但是你后面再去做这个更精确的这个 PFAS 的检测的话，它还是会很低。如果是有这个概率和可能的话，大概会出现在哪一些产品当中？比如说刚刚前面有那个老师提到的那个食品的这个包装这个材料和这个纺织品，是不是也会有这个可能性和概率？谢谢大家。
Thank you, Shandan Yang, for sharing and also for raising your question. So I think we have several questions, Sarah, that we will request you to respond. I think from Shushiran, her question was like basically from NGOs, how can we help monitor PFAS for NGOs? And then also from Shan Danyang, I'm not sure if I got her question right, but she's wondering because they did also testing, but they find it difficult to test PFAS with the other chemicals. I'm not sure if I got it correctly, but yes, I think this, if you can quickly respond to that. And also another one, Sarah, sorry. In the Q&A, I think two questions no ask about if PFAS are also present in plastic and also in the studies presented by Yitka no, on PFAS and food packaging and textiles. Are PFAS present or are are those PFAS from plastics? Yes, please.
So short answers, I don't know, but I will try. When it comes to monitoring as an NGO in country, I think the first thing testing water samples, textiles, or things like that is always very, very useful, but of course it requires funding. What can be done without funding is looking at what is regulated globally. Has that been implemented and ratified in your country? There is also research, monitoring research and other things posted open source and open access to look at. Has there been monitoring done in your country that you can use instead? As also presented just now, looking at are there additional PFAS chemicals that are regulated in other countries that you think that your country should regulate as well? So those are just some thoughts around things or investigations you can do even without more funding to do a different monitoring. If you do have funding, there is, of course, water samples, textile samples, food packaging are all samples where we usually find PFAS. So those would be and are usually very effective because especially if you look at food packaging, it is contaminating the food everyone eats. So that's very telling, very powerful. So that's my very quick answer. No, that's not a full story at all, but that's the quick version. When it comes to testing, and the question relates to different testing methods that Jitka presented, since the sound was not great, there are two ways you can test for PFAS. You can either look at specific PFAS compound like PFOA or PFOS using existing chemical standards. So that's a way to identify specific PFAS compounds. But there are no standards for all the thousands of different PFAS compounds. So what you can also do is you can test for organic fluorine. So that is fluoroatoms that are part of organic molecule, basically. And that is typically a PFAS compound. So what Jitka and what we've done in these studies is to look at both. We look at the total organic fluorine content that indicates total PFAS content, but also relating that to the specific PFAS compounds that we could identify using these standards. So if you do both, typically what we see is that the majority of PFAS in food packaging, in jackets or waterproof textiles, most PFAS are not identified by these standards. So these are the newer ones. So what a recommendation that IPEN has is that the total organic fluorine content should be used, and also, of course, more standards to be developed. That's the short answer. Again, definitely not the full story, but the short answer. When it comes to plastics, there are two ways that PFAS can be related to plastics. So first of all, you can find PFAS contamination of plastics. That's very common. If you search for it using a search engine, you will find a lot of different studies around lower levels of PFAS being found in water bottles, in plastic food containers, or different food items. So that is typically because of a surface treatment or contamination. Then there is also actual PFAS plastics. So they're called fluoropolymers. So if you look at Gore-Tex, for example, this brand name of a material, that is actually a PFAS plastic. It's the same chemical that is used for making Teflon frying pans. Some contact lenses are made of fluoropolymers. A lot of small seals that are like rubber sealings, not the animal seal, that are used in engines, for example, are this fluoropolymer. And I've been released a report last week, 2 weeks ago, around this as well. So I can put the link in the chat for that. So the short answer is yes, PFAS can both be found in plastic, but there is also PFAS plastics, PFAS polymers. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for answering the questions. Maybe very quickly, we also have a question for Guofeng, if you're okay. What lessons can we are to give us like 1, 2 lessons that we can learn, like countries from Asia, no, or from developing countries, from the PFAS regulations in the US or in the EU. And also linking it to you said about developing a regulation in China. So if you have like 2 lessons that you want to share with us.
好的，谢谢主持人。我觉得有一个经验是特别重要的，是因为我刚才也提到了，就是美国、欧盟已经加强了对 PFAS 的监管， 特别像美国又有系列的诉讼啊，在这种情况下呢，这些生产 PFAS 的企业已经退出了在美国和欧盟的生产。但是呢，在全球市场上，PFAS 产品又有这个需求，这时候呢，这些生产会转移到法治薄弱的国家，包括像中国这样的国家。那所以说，在这种情况下，如何防止这个污染转移是特别重要的一个，因为 PFAS 的治理，首先是要从源头上治理。从源头上治理，怎么治理呢？那就是你不生产，尽量少的生产，只生产必须的那些禁止生产的，就是不能生产。那在这种情况下呢，就是要推动本国的法律的尽快建立起来，越快越好，因为这个时间差越快，这种污染转移的程度就会越低。一旦这个本国的法律制度不尽快建立起来，那这个污染转移是必然的，因为对于企业来说，它追求利润，追求这个它经济效益是它的本能它一定会寻找到这些合适的土壤去生产这些 PFAS 产品。所以我就是呼吁大家能够推动本国的 PFAS 规制的法律的尽快建立起来。那我做这个研究呢，其实就是希望能够支持到这个中国的这样的一个立法的规制哈。那其实中国政府呢，其实也意识到这样一个问题，也正在搭建这样一个框架体系，以及构建具体的制度。那在这样的一个窗口期，其实我们叫它立法的这个窗口期，那我们 NGO 和立法者基于我们自己的研究，包括我们自己的一些调研能够去推动本国的立法者制定更加这个符合国情，同时能够保护我们公众健康的这个 PFAS 的法律制度这是特别重要的一个时机。刚才大家也讨论到，其实这个规则体系关于 PFAS 这个规则体系正在构建过程中。那国际上有国际条约，那这些国家很多国家也都参加了这个国际条约，那他要去履行这个公约，是吧？那要通过构建本国的这个法律制度去来履行这个条约。那我们就是要这样推动立法者在这个，因为我们中国是有一个立法参与的这样的一个当然其实各个国家应该都有的这个立法参与的机会所以说我们尽量要去推动他们，去把我们的意见表达出来，而且我们要有相应的研究支持。那在这块呢，我觉得 iPen 也能发挥它的作用哈。这个 iPen 的这种研究能够其实为我们 iPen 的伙伴来用我觉得特别特别重要的。这块的科学知识我们也特别需要。谢谢。
Shishi, Gufang for answering the question. So, thank you. Thank you so much to our speakers and also to the questions, not to those who ask questions. So we will now proceed to the second session. We have another speaker who will share with us about this important topic on the PFAS disclosure performance of Chinese listed companies in 2024. So we have here our resource person, Zhang Yinghao, the project manager at Chiang Mai Minhang District or Qingyi Environment Protection Information Technology Service Center, also known as Shanghai Qingyi. She graduated from Dunha University, and since joining their organization in 2018, he has been responsible for the operation and communication of the organization's public welfare projects. Yes. Ying Hao, please take the floor now. Thank you.
好的，感谢主持人，也很感谢各位 NGO 伙伴，大家晚上好，很高兴今天能有这样一个机会，在主办方的邀请下，代表我们机构给大家分享一下我们在PFAS 研究方面所做的一些工作。那我们这个工作也是在这个 SE 基金会的一个资助下所开展的。 那我今天分享的内容呢，是中国上市公司 PFAS 披露的一个表现。那分享的话会从3个部分讲。首先，第一部分是对于上市公司目前的一个披露要求；第二部分的话是关于现在整体的一个披露现状；最后一部分呢是关于我们上海清悦所做的一些推动工作。那我们看第一部分的这个披露要求。那目前的话，我们对于上市公司来讲，并没有专项的一个披露要求，要求它披露 PFAS 相关的一个信息。那根据我们检索发现的话，目前对于中国上市公司来讲，的要求是在于有一个上市公司可持续发展报告指引。那在2024年4月12日，是在中国证监会的指导下，我们中国的上海交易所、深圳交易所和北京3个交易所呢，它正式发布了上市公司可持续发展报告指引。它是为了更好的引导和规范上市公司发布可持续发展报告或环境、社会和公司治理报告。那在这个指引当中呢，它明确规定了披露主体或其重要的子公司，这个披露主体也就指的是上市公司本身，如果是被列入环境信息法披露企业的名单当中，那它应当披露国际环境公约规定的受控物质的种类、名称、排放总量、核定的排放等污染物信息。那但是呢，我们要注意的一点呢，就是说它这个规定并不是要求所有上市公司去披露，它只能覆盖到很小的一部分。特别是我们所关注的这一个纺织服装行业这个重点行业里面，其实它很多的这个上市公司并不被这个披露要求所覆盖。那这也是目前披露要求的一个现状。确实是对于整体来讲，中国在这一块的一个要求还不是特别的完善。那第二部分的话，是我们目前的一个披露现状的一个研究。那为了更好的研究呢，我们也开发了我们清悦专门的 ESG 报告 AI 数据提取工具。那通过这个工具呢，我们可以对上市公司的一个报告进行全量的一个数据提取和分析。那通过我们的这个工具提取呢，我们通过检索全幅 PFOA 和 PFAS 等关键词在这些上市公司的报告当中的披露。那我们一共对中国8205家上市公司2024年度的这个 PFAS 披露现状去进行了分析。那报告呢是一共涵盖了11043份上市公司的年报或者是 ESG 报告。那通过我们的分析发现，一共有85家上市公司披露了 PFAS 相关内容，其中最多的上交所上海证券交易所的公司最多有33家，深圳证券交易所的有30家，香港证券交易所的有21家，北京证券交易所的有1家。那相对应的，在2023年度的时候我们发现是有76家公司披露了相关内容。那这是目前整体的一个披露现状。那确实是只有很少的一部分能够披露 PFAS 相关的内容。那在这85家公司当中呢，我们可以发现，披露 PFAS 管理的行业里面是信息技术类的公司数量最多，有27家，在整体的占比是达到了35%。那这个呢，也可能是因为这些信息技术公司很多是电子相关行业，例如在电路板呀，或者说电子元件，他们这里面在生产过程中可能会涉及到 PFAS 相关物质的一些应用。那其次呢，是为工业类的公司，占比达到了22%。那他们的过程中也是因为他们主要涉及到了 PFAS 的生产或者是应用的一些环节。那我们作为公众来讲，我们关注更高的一般消费类行业，在主要消费和可选消费类公司当中呢，一共有19家公司披露了相关的内容，占比达22%。整体来看，它的比例还是比较低的。这是在行业分布的一个披露现状。那下面一部分呢，是在披露内容类型的一个分布。那我们也对这85家公司的一个披露内容进行了进一步的分析。那我们可以看到，一共有53家公司披露的是PFAS 管控类的内容。那还有22家披露的是对于这种无副产品的研究或者是技术的一些替代方案的一些披露。那还有10家公司呢，他们是介绍 PFAS 相关法规管控类型的一些背景类资料。那 以我们上海清月这次分析中重点关注的纺织服装行业为例，那一共有13家公司披露了 PFAS 相关内容，但是呢，其中只有8家公司披露的是对于 PFAS 管控的一些内容，那其他5家的话披露的更多的就是对于无氟产品的一些介绍，或者说他们正在研发的一些研发进展。那这就是目前整体的我们所观察到的，在披露内容这块的一个分布表现。那第3部分的话，我要给大家分享的是，我们在这个 PFAS 披露这过程中，对于上市公司的一些推动工作。那首先呢，我们也会积极利用我们自身的这个影响力，那我们会利用我们的微信公众号，清月 ESG，然后会发布我们相关的一些研究文章，让更多的利益相关方去了解到这个 PFAS 现在的一个披露现状。那目前的话，我们已经发出了有10篇和 PFAS 相关的文章内容，去介绍 PFAS 的一个披露现状啊，以及向更多的国内关注的人去介绍国外关于 PFAS 的一些管控的一些最新动态。那在2023年度，我们其实已经开始了对于这个 PFAS 的一个研究。我们当时的研究内容的分析呢，也吸引了媒体的关注。这是来自中国化工报它的一个媒体报道文章，那也是通过这个报道文章呢，能够引起更多利益相关方对于 PFAS 的一个关注。除了这些文章的发布以外呢，我们也在积极的利用其他一些手段去进行推动。比如说，我们有关注到在中国的证券交易所有一个设置的在线的一个互动板块。那我们利用这个上市公司的互动板块去向这些没有披露 PFAS 相关内容的上市公司去进行发问，推动他们去主动的披露 PFAS 相关内容。那例如我们在利用这个上证易互动这个平台，去同上市公司进行提问。那截止到现在的话，我们已经向30家上市公司去发出了这个提问，询问他们是否有涉及 PFAS 相关内容，并且如何去在今后的报告当中去披露。那目前的话，我们也是收到了9家公司的答复。那我们可以看到，就是在这个内容里面呢，就是说有一些公司会涉及去明确的跟我们讲明他们在涉及服这块的一些工作，也有一些呢会回答我们，他们可能是目前还没有涉及到含服的这些产品。那当然，未来我们也会探索更多的方式去来推动中国的这个上市公司去来关注和披露 PFAS 相关的一些内容。那我今天的分享就到这里，谢谢大家，感谢。
Thank you so much, Xinghao, for sharing your important work. No, I think one thing that I've learned from your presentation is it's very important that industries are willing to disclose the information, and then with the information that are provided, we can use it. No, we analyze it and we can use it, and also in our advocacy work. And thank you for your efforts. I also hope that like in other countries in Asia or globally, information will be available so we can also make use of that, especially in the developing countries, like for example in the Philippines. But I'm not sure if we really have that information from the industry now. But thank you again for sharing your work. So now we've requested also our colleagues from South Korea and Japan to share with us their organizations initiatives in terms of addressing PFAS in their country. So first, I'm going to request Masami Kitaka. She's also a practicing lawyer in Japan and a board member of the Japan Endocrine Disruptor Preventive Action, or JEPA. So JEPA was established in 1998 by women lawyers, experts, and citizens. They work on preventing harm from dioxins and endocrine disrupting chemicals, raising public awareness, and advocating effective government measures to protect voiceless wildlife and future generations. So again, thank you for joining us. Masami, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Chinky, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. So may I share my screen with you? Okay. So, Chinky, is this all right? Or
Do you do the other
this
way?
good?
Yeah,
The
that's
other way?
yes, that's
Okay,
excellent.
okay,
Thank you.
okay. Okay. So, let me start by introducing JEPA. As Chinky introduced, JEPA was founded in 1998. And in 1999, we joined IPEM. This was around the time when the INC of the Stockholm Convention was being held. And it was our first time attending an international meeting. We were really inspired by the members of IPEM. And now JEPA academic researchers and lawyers work very hard in hand with citizens. Recently, JEPA has been working on issues such as pesticides like neonicotinoids, endocrine disrupting chemicals, PFAS, fragrance, and plastics. The 4 pamphlets you see on the left were made by JEPA for the general public. The one on the far right is a UNEP pamphlet, which we translated into Japanese. Now let's turn to today's main topic, PFAS. JEPA started to work on PFAS in 2019 when we prepared JEPA's situation report for IPEN. You can still find this report on IPEN's website. At that time, PFAS was not so widely recognized as now as a significant issue in Japan. As many of you are aware, Japan is a significant producer of PFAS. PFAS has been manufactured since 1947. Some of the major companies involved are AGC, Daikin, and Mitsui Chemours. In Japan, only 3 PFAS are legally regulated: PFOS, P4, and PFHXS. There are no rules for other PFAS substances. Okay. So these 3 substances were regulated under the Act on the Regulation of Manufacture and Evaluation of Chemical Substance, after they were listed under the Stockholm Convention. But this law only bans manufacturing and importing. So that means newly made or newly imported PFAS are covered, but those already in use or already in waste are not. So in reality, we still don't know how much existing PFAS are contaminated the Japanese environment. Since 2019, the Ministry of Environment has been surveying PFOS and P4 in rivers and groundwaters across the country. By March 2023, about 2,700 locations had been tested. Some areas were found to be heavily contaminated with combined PFOS and P4 level exceeding 1,000 nanograms per liter. In other words, there are PFAS hotspots in Japan. Oops. Sorry, it says, since 2019, sorry, this map shows hotspots identified by December 2023. There are 2 main types of sources. Red areas are from industry. Dark red means PFAS factories themselves. Lighter red means industrial waste sites or recycling plants. For example, in Okayama Prefecture, a storage site for activated carbon that has been used to remove PFAS, was leaking large amount of PFAS into the environment. And PFAS was detected in drinking water in that area. Blue areas are from bases and airfields. Hotspots have been found near US military bases and Japan's self-defense force facilities. And there are also hotspots where the source is still unknown. PFAS has been found in people's bodies in these contaminated areas. This table summarizes studies on internal exposure. Some people have levels high enough to be considered a health risk. But currently, Japan has no standards at all for PFAS levels in human bodies. To set our standard for drinking water, the Food Safety Commission of Japan carried out a risk assessment for PFAS, P4 and PFOS and P4. This is a slide that they used. They stated its object was to evaluate the health effect of PFAS by clarifying what is currently known and what is not yet known. I was really shocked by this statement because such an object is far from the precautionary principle. It is obvious that just clarifying what we know and we don't know yet enough is not enough to protect public health. Anyway, FSCJ held 9 meetings between February 2023 and June 24. So in their risk assessment, the FSCJ often use the phrases like a causal relationship cannot be ruled out, evidence is insufficient, findings are limited, and the effects remain unclear. So overall, they do not actively acknowledge the health risk of PFOS and P4. Here are the TDIs that FSCJ calculated. For PFOS and P4, each was set at 20 nanograms per kilogram of body weight per day. For PFHXS, no TDI was set because they said scientific evidence was insufficient. So their paper, their risk assessment has been published in English, so you can look it up if you are interested. So based on this TDI, the water quality standard for tap water and bottled water was set at 50 nanograms per liter for the total of PFOS and P4. This applies only to drinking water, not to factory discharges. The standard will come into effect April 1st next year. Until then, Japan has no binding water quality standard at all. For citizens, concerned about PFAS health risk, this standard is much too lenient. It is far weaker than those in the US or in the EU. So people have wondered, why is there such a big difference? Even though the same scientific literature was used. So later, we found out a shocking fact. FSCJ started discussion in February 2023. At first, they used 257 scientific papers screened by a group of experts. after 9 meetings, they set the TDI. But it was later revealed that 24 closed sessions informal sessions had also been held between the 9 public sessions. So in those closed sessions, the literature base was changed. Only 67 of the original 257 papers were actually used, but 201 other reports were added. So many studies showing the health effects were removed, while less relevant ones were added. So we cannot believe that the current TDI was set in a scientifically sound way. So we believe that Japanese TDI must be reviewed. So finally, here are JEPA's recommendations to the Japanese government on PFAS. So not just only PFOS or P4 and PFHXS, but all PFAS should be regulated. Standards should be set not only for water, but also for seafood, and PFAS waste should be properly stored and treated. Highly contaminated area must be identified and treated properly. And since Japan has no nationwide human biomonitoring program, we are asking for a new system of biomonitoring to be established. Okay, so so this is where we are now. I hope you can understand our situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Masami. And thank you to JPA for your excellent work. And for how many decades, imagine you've been following and monitoring how regulation on PFAS is being developed or implemented no, in your country. So thank you. Thank you so much for your great work. So now I will call in another colleague who will share their initiatives also in South Korea. May I call on Dr. Won Kim, the Executive Director of the Wonjin Institute for Occupational and Environmental Health in South Korea. His expertise spans on occupational, environment evaluation, environmental epidemiology, and biomonitoring of hazardous chemicals. No, just to mention this, no, their organization and he pioneered the biomonitoring projects, including citizen studies on endocrine disrupting chemicals and a firefighter cohort study linking toxic exposures to health outcomes. So for this webinar, Dr. Won Kim will share WIO's or the Wonjin Institute's initiatives on addressing PFAS in their country. Dr. Won, please take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you for introducing me. It's a great honor for me to be here and have a chance to share the findings of the result of the study we have done. I will share of the occupational exposure to PFAS in Korea and the general public's exposure status and what is the regulation implemented in Korea about the PFAS. Before the presentation, I want to introduce my institute, Wonjin. In short, we call our institute as Wonjin Institute. Maybe Wonjin Institute was established in 1999, so maybe our institute is a junior, 1 year junior to the JEPA. And the research scope is focused on workers' exposure to hazardous chemicals at the workplace, at their workplaces, and community contamination around the factory, and hazardous chemical detection in the products which are used by the general public. One of the studies we have done is the about the firefighters' exposure to the hazardous chemicals. This is a pilot study and one of the type of code study. So we recruited the firefighters from the beginning of their appointment and followed up for 3 years how many hazardous chemicals exposed to, or how many chemicals are accumulated in their bodies. We analyzed the many chemicals such as the flame retardants and heavy metals and the PFAS in their blood and urines. One of the results is the PFAS exposure level in their blood. As you see in this slide, the exposure level to PFOA in their blood gradually increased as their career lengthened. And there is a guidance level for guidance value for PFOA level in the blood. It is called as HBM, Human Biomonitoring 1 and 2 value, which is established by the German Environment Protection Agency. The HBM, when the blood PFOA level in blood exceed the HBM2 level, then it is that you are very risky situation. So you have to find out the exposure source for the PFAS and immediately get rid of the PFAS exposure sources. The incidence rate of the HBM2 in firefighters was also gradually increased as their career lengthened. And this is exposure sources for the firefighters. We collected the dust in the vacuum cleaner and air purifier, which have been used in the fire stations. The level of PFAS in the dust from the fire station is very high compared to the general office, about 5 to 10 fold. And the surface of the fire station also contaminated with the PFAS. All parts of the turnout gear and inside of the vehicle and inside of the garage was contaminated with very many kinds of PFAS. So the fire station was contaminated because the firefighter brought the contaminated dust at their workplaces, the fire ground. So this is the typical type of occupational exposure. And second study was on the general public's exposure to the PFAS. This is the biomonitoring study with the citizens. We recruited 49 families composed of 160 family members. We also collected the urine and blood and house dust and even the drinking water to detect the hazardous chemicals such as the phthalate, environmental phenols, for example, the bisphenol AFS or paraben or BP1 or BP3, and flame retardant and PFAS, in urine, blood, house dust, and drinking waters. This is the first result findings from the studies. We analyzed 52 hazardous toxic chemicals, and of them we detected 48 kinds of compounds. And the average number of detected chemicals was 32. And of them, 16 chemicals detected in all the samples. And of the 16 compounds, 6 was from phthalates and 9 was PFAS. So PFAS is everywhere and persistent toxic chemicals we can call. The exposure level of the Korean citizens was about 5-fold higher compared to the USA citizens. And as for the children, the exposure level to the PFOA was 5.6-fold higher compared to teenagers in European Unions. So this means that Korean general public is very high exposed to the PFAS. The incidence rate for HBM2 is about 19% of the Korean citizens. There is another guidance level for PFAS. The guidance level, which was established by the European Food Safety Agency, was used as another guide level. The average extent rate for this guidance level in European unions was 14.3%. But for the Korean citizens, the incidence rate was over 19%. These two slides tells us that the exposure status in Korea is very high. And we collected 43 drinking water from the homes of the participants. Regardless of the drinking water type, all the level of PFOA in the drinking water we collected and tested exceeded the maximum contamination level, which was set by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. This is another important exposure sources for PFAS. Anyway, there are some regulations to control the use of PFAS in Korea. The Korean government ratified the Stockholm Convention, so they established the Persistent Pollutants Control Act. And based on this act, the POPs, including the PFOS and PFOA, is banned or prohibited. And Korean government have a standard for drinking water for PFOA, PFOS, and PFHX. But the JEPA has explained the standards for drinking water in Korea is very high compared to the Japan and the USA. And 12 types of PFAS compound should not be used in the cosmetics. And in the fire existing agent, the PFOA and the PFOS are not permitted for use. It is maybe based on the POPs Control Act in Korea. And the apparatus, containers, and packages for food should not use the POPs. There are several regulations in Korea, but as you can see in this slide, they only recently implemented. It conversely means that before this regulation, so many PFAS are used in very many products in Korea. So this is the reason why Korean population's exposure to PFAS is very high compared to the other countries. So the findings from our study tell us that PFAS are ubiquitous. So it is inevitable to escape from the exposure to the PFAS. So we need very strong regulations. As Fang said, in European countries, five European countries already submitted a proposal to restrict the use of PFAS. If it is implemented, then all types of PFAS shall not be used in the market. So I totally agree with those proposals. So we will expand our study with the citizen to raise up the awareness of the citizens and make the government to move to make a strong regulation in the future. So this is what I prepared today, and thanks for listening.
Kamsahamnida. Thank you so much, Won Kim, and to the Wonchun Institute for all your great work. Well, I'm a witness of how you do all the biomonitoring and studies, and EDCs, and of course, thank you for sharing your work on PFAS. It's amazing that South Korea has this good regulations on PFAS, but also you also said that we need to regulate more PFAS. So yes, so we are almost at the end of this webinar, but I hope you stay. We still have a few minutes. I hope you will stay with us more. I think we'll now go to the Q&A. But also being conscious of the time, I think we will just ask one question to all the three speakers earlier, because our webinar is really we want free future. So I'm gonna ask Wonki, Masami, Kitaka, and also the other speaker earlier. Yeah. So would like to say first, Masami, can you share with us what is a truly PFAS future like from your perspective?
Oh, I don't know. It's so it's a very big question. So still, it's a very new challenge to, all the people, because by now our legal system is used to handle regulation of the substance by substance, but PFAS has to be treated as a group. Otherwise, there are 10,000 of substances. If we spend 2 years to regulate one substance, how long would it take? So it's a new challenge. I don't know how we can make it, but probably that's a way we have to look for. Okay.
Great answer. Thank you so much, Masami. Juan Kim, so same question with you. So what do you think is PFAS-free future looks like?
Uh, it's also a very hard question to answer, but I believe that the benefits from the use of PFAS in the industry side and the hazard and health effects is on our side. It's very I cannot accept this situation. So we have to control and we have to ban the use of the PFAS, all types of PFAS. I think the PFAS standards in the food, PFAS standards on the drinking water is meaningless. We need to ban the use of the PFAS in all the products, all the markets. So this is the first things we have to make in our real life. So, but this is not easy to obtain. So we have to do our best to this situation make happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Juan Kim. I'm gonna also request Ying Hao, because you've been doing great um, initiatives on monitoring PFAS with the industry information. But same question goes to you. What do you think is a PFAS-free future, in your perspective?
我觉得这个无 PFAS 的未来还是有一个很艰难的工作要做。当然，我相信随着我们大家的共同努力，这一天还是会来到的。那是需要我们在座的各位以及更多的关注方去做出他们的行动来。好的，谢谢。
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. So I think that ends our Q&A. But before we really close this webinar, I'm going to request my colleague who is also very hands-on, very much involved in preparing and organizing this webinar, Ling Hoi, the Deputy Director of Toxics Free Corps, to give her closing message. Ling Hoi.
谢谢 Jing，我都会用中文。大家晚上好，各位亲爱的朋友好。时间过得真快，2个小时的研讨会即将落下帷幕。那在这短暂而充实的时光里，我们共同探讨了 PFAS 这一严峻的议题。来自多个国家的 NGO 齐聚一堂，碰撞出思想的火花，为解决 PFAS 的污染问题，贡献智慧与力量。那通过这次研讨会呢，我们了解到 PFAS 如幽灵一般广泛存在于我们的生活环境中，比如像食品包装材料、纺织品、水体乃至我们的人体。然而，现实令人担忧。但是，当前无论是企业、政府，就国家层面还是全球层面，对 PFAS 的管控尚处于初步阶段，且不同地区之间存在着显著差异。但值得庆幸的是，民间组织已经成为一股不可或缺的力量。你们活跃在检测一线，洞察着 PFAS 的踪迹，通过人体监测揭示其潜在的危害，也投身于企业或政策的倡导工作，努力唤醒社会各界对这问题的重视。那尽管我们已经迈出了这一个步伐，但需要实现一个真正无 PFAS 的未来，还有很长的道路要走。还有很多艰巨的任务等待我们去完成，需要我们加强国际合作，分享经验与技术，也需要更多的研究和创新来寻找替代方案，也需要每一个人提高意识，从自身做起，减少PFAS 的这种消费品的使用和以及企业作为一个企业的主体，它也要去减少这个排放。那就是虽然我们马上接近尾声，但我们的使命也尚未结束。也是希望大家通过今天这个研讨会收获到知识，灵感和友谊，能够回到各自的岗位，继续为无 PFAS 的美好未来而努力奋斗。相信在我们的努力下，如前面各位嘉宾所期待的那样，也所相信的那样，一定能够逐步缩小差距，迎来一个清洁健康的世界。也再次感谢大家的参与和支持，祝大家就是早安、晚安、午安，然后希望我们未来能够再有机会见面，然后谢谢大家，
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Ling Hoi, and everyone. Thank you to all our speakers, co-organizers, and participants for this rich and insightful discussion. Now, today we are reminded that while global agreements like the Stockholm Convention are critical, action at national and local levels, including the corporate and community levels, is just vital. So let us continue to work together for a PFAS-free future. So, and the recording soon. So have a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Goodbye.